Good
morning. We've already formed a quorum. Let's start our meeting. Today we have 47 deputations and individuals. The meeting is scheduled to finish at 1 p.m. So please grasp your time well. On the 3rd of July, we'll have another meeting on financial matters. Originally, on the 10th of July, we should discuss financial matters, traffic and transport, community affairs in the vicinity. Those are very important issues because it's West Kowloon. So we have two meetings, one on financial matters. A number of incidents have occurred in relation to financial matters. Members have asked a lot of questions. On the 10th of July, we'll focus on community relations with West Kowloon, XRL, TNT, community art, etc. can be discussed. So those will be for the 10th of July. Any objection? If not, that will be our schedule. Today we have 47 deputations, which will take us to 1 p.m. And for the WKCDA, they say that they have to leave a moment after 1 p.m. Well, it's quite a long meeting. We can't make it too long. So today our main task is to listen to views. So members, please consider that. Besides, on item 3 today, we'll discuss development of cultural software. Have all the government officials arrived? Good morning, Permanent Secretary. Good morning. Perhaps Mr. Raymond Young or WKCDA representatives can do an introduction and members can ask questions. This session will end at 9:40 a.m. All right? So, Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've submitted a paper. We would like to emphasize that for the design and facilities for the WKCD, we attach a great deal of importance to software development. WCDA, before the commissioning of facilities, will through a series of activities and programs before the opening to liaise with stakeholders and expand its audience. There is an annex to the paper which sets out the fact that the administration and many organizations will adopt multi-pronged approaches to develop art software, covering a number of major factors. The support for the Arts Festival, expand the audience, enhance public education, and nurturing of talents. The paper has set out a number of details in the paper. I'd like to see whether the CEO has anything to supplement.
I guess the issue, we're glad to be here today to have the opportunity to hear the views of the members of the committee, but also in particular the views of the arts community. I think it's very clear with this project that it emanated from the wishes of the arts community for the facilities that were decided on for West Kowloon. Clearly there is, I guess, some sense of impatience and frustration on behalf of the arts community as to the development of the project, the timeline on the project, and a range of those other issues. I think from our point of view, we are anxious to be able to get that. We've had a lot of ongoing discussions with, particularly over the course of the last 2 years, in terms of the development of the specific pieces of the infrastructure, but more broadly about the important issues of what Hong Kong needs to make sure that its arts and cultural industries can thrive. And I guess one of the things that we would take out of today would be the ongoing need in the present circumstances for us to be able to continue the software development side of what we're doing, but at the same time engaging in an ongoing way with the arts community. I think that's all I need to say at this point.
Any supplement? If not, so questions, members, 4 minutes, including questions and answers. Please raise your hands. Ms. Claudia Mo first. Oh, sorry. I missed Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok first. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I'd like to put forth a viewpoint. We're sorry I have to declare that I'm a member of the board of the WKCDA. Concerning cultural software, my view is that this is not just a WKCD mission. To develop WKCD, there's one more important point, that is to develop the cultural software, and that is the government's duty. WKCD is to match the territorial development of cultural software in Hong Kong. In the past 2 to 3 years, on other fronts, the government has done more and give more resources to cultural software, but those are not enough. Take, for example, the HKADC, which I worked for in the past. The increase in resources was not enough. And upon the commissioning of the WKCD, every year there will be about $30 million directly invested into cultural software. But if you look at other aspects, for example, the building of community culture, it's very important to the long-term development of WKCD. Subvention for small and medium art troupes is also important. On those fronts, I haven't seen too much enhanced injection of resources. Well, what about the planning of other software for WKCD? The development of cultural software for WKCD, how's that related to the overall territorial development of cultural software? Ms. Claudia Mo, Ms. Chen Yun-han, and Mr. Tony Tse have raised their hands. Well, answer first. Well, let them answer first, all right? Yes, thank you, Mr. Ma, for your questions. In this paper, we mention comprehensively that apart from WKCD, for the other stakeholders in the ecology of the arts community, what they plan to do and what they're doing. The coverage is quite broad. For support for art troupes, that's set out in part 1 of the paper, and for nurturing of talents, we also map out our strategies and how to develop art education and to broaden the audience base of cultural programs. Now, I won't dwell on the details of the paper, but those 4 elements represent our major policies. And we have the development of traditional Cantonese opera. These elements will support our overall policy for art development, as well as implementation. After commissioning, we'll liaise closely with the WKCDA. We have a broadened audience base, enhancement of program quality, more venues, more support for small and medium art troupes in future. Now, all these will be very helpful to the future of the WKCD. Just now, Mr. Ma mentioned the subvention for HKADC. There was quite an increase, but probably not meeting Mr. Ma's expectation yet. And last year, more $30 million more will be for small and medium groups. And every year, the OCSD has subvention for small and medium art groups. Next, Ms. Claudia Mo.
I could read from your reply to all the inquiries from 3 of the legislators, right? that you will not comment on any speculative reports on the overall cost of the project. But then you must have some budgetary assumptions.
毛議員啊，我諗我哋係歸返
Ms. Mo, I think we should focus on this paper, which is related to software. As for the letter on the 3rd of July, I can't touch upon that completely. Well, you can speak on financial matters, but they have the right not to answer. Well, if you want to organize your remarks, you can speak later.
Earlier, you said you could see, you could sense impatience and frustration on the part of the arts community in Tang. How are you going to address that problem, essentially? Because this project has been going on for, well, a long time, if not exactly for years. And what's the... and you also mentioned the ongoing need for software development and so on. It all sounds very nice to hear, except how are you going to prove to Hong Kong people, especially the arts community, that the whole thing's not going to turn into some white elephant project after all?
Mr. Lynch.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think we have proved over the course of the last 3 years, and I think it's important that Legislative Council members recognise that our team has been in place for just over 3 years. But in terms of the progress that has been made in advancing the specific issues around infrastructure, the approval of the development plan, the approval of this issue progress, and the first steps to actually begin work on this issue, the progress on M+, in terms of getting to a design resolution, but also, more importantly, the development of a program across all range of our activities, the development of the cultural leadership, the other programs that have taken place. I guess from our point of view, the most important issue in regard to the arts community and the broader community of Hong Kong is to try and establish some sense of urgency in regard to a project that has been around since 1998, and we've had charge of it since 3 years ago, to be able to start delivering on some of those expectations, to be able to start to build some sense of expectation and enthusiasm for the project, while recognising the pressures on the project in terms of budget, time, competing requests. I think it is very clear in regard to this project, but I think if you broaden it out from a Hong Kong perspective to most other parts of the world, that cultural projects are having to go to great lengths to explain their value to the society, their value to the arts community, and in an era when competing resources are an important part of all government discussion, we have to be able to make sure that the case that we're putting both to the broader community, to the legislature and to everyone else builds some sense of joint agreement as to what this project is for. It's a grand vision. It was set out as a grand vision at every stage along the way, and what we're trying to do is to realise it in the shortest possible period of time.
Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Next, Ms. Chen Yunhan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Concerning software, this issue is not just related to WKCD. It's of course important to WKCD, but to develop culture for the whole of Hong Kong, we must make sure that the WKCD is related to the 5 administrative districts of Hong Kong. Well, this is a broad issue, and Permanent Secretary, you're familiar with this. If I follow Annexes 1 and 2 of your paper, you had project plans, liaison with art groups, etc. But the art groups are strangers to you. You're working within a small circle. The title is Development of cultural software. This issue is related to a number of other issues. You mentioned talents. Permanent Secretary, concerning talents, what about performance venues? What about accessibility to the venues? Quite many members of the art community, a number of questions. Last time I asked Mr. Lynch whether we must employ somebody who is English speaking. We do need a lot of talents. We do need training. You have training programs, but very much limited. I think you have to share your views with the art groups, in particular recruitment of personnel for WKCDA. For old districts like East Kowloon and Sampo Kong in Kwun Tong, we face a certain situation. We say, even if you build something in Wang Chuk Hang, you cannot meet the people in the two major industrial areas in Hong Kong. So how are you going to solve that problem? If we have cultural software, if we have WKCD, how are we going to face the various districts in Hong Kong? What's the overall policy of the Hong Kong government? There are two questions.
Chairman, I'll respond very quickly. Regarding talents, as pointed out in the paper, well, it's already in the paper, but I'd like to stress here that you may recall the saying this. In the coming 5 years, we're going to spend $150 million to train more art administrators so as to support our cultural and arts development, including at WKCD. So the paper is rather detailed on this, but if necessary, can provide in writing further details. In the coming 5 years, the internship within LCSD and also Hong Kong ADC and WKCDA local and overseas training, well, in total, we're going to have 600 to 700 training places for administrators. So this will be of great assistance. Regarding the needs of our older districts. Well, starting from this term, district councils have about an extra $2 million for building up culture. And Hong Kong ADC has also got a new plan. In industrial factories, there will be space for artists for their use, and recruitment will start later this year. I think you are just being around the bush. You have not answered my real questions. Writing, Madam Chung, your time is up. No, I just like to stress one more point. There must be technical transfer. Well, when we build bridges, that was what's done. But WKCD, why don't we have local talents? Well, I think you've already put enough emphasis on this. Any written reply and the PS said that details can be supplied in writing at members' request. All right. So please give us a paper for our information. Mr. Tony Zhe. Thank you, Chairman. Well, talents are very important. As said by Madam Chang Yuen Han, it is important that we groom talents. All right, the PS stressed some statistics for us. Say 10 out of 20 staff members have been trained, but it is important that local people can be involved. We need people who know Hong Kong well, who know the Eastern culture well, to be involved. So it is just an expression of opinion. In addition to training, transfer of technology is just as important. And other community, their awareness and understanding of the arts are also important. The paper sets out a number of activities for the local community. you have to work on education as well. Now, I am a total layman. I'm ignorant because I never had the chance to approach the arts when I was a student. And also theaters, black box theaters, we should have more. For exhibitions and for the public to get close to the arts. And it was rumored that the XRL might be late in coming. So will this affect the original targets of WKCD? What contingency measures do you have? WKCD, I think we can discuss it on the 10th of July. Mr. Lynch?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just on the question of local talent, I think it needs to be continually, and I think it does address the former member's question to some extent. We have, at the moment, as you'll see from the paper, about 143 staff. 90% of them come from Hong Kong. And from that point of view, our intention is to address the issue of where we can get the best expertise from Hong Kong, where we can then supplement that expertise for the benefit of the future development of West Kowloon and of the arts in Hong Kong itself. So I think that needs to be recognised, that our focus is very much on building a Hong Kong organisation. I think I'm the only person in the organisation who speaks only one language. Dr. Nitva, who also comes from overseas, speaks many more languages than me, and clearly my staff all speak at least 2 up to 10 languages, including those that have come from overseas. So that's important. In regard to your question on the railway, we do not have an indication yet as to any change in the timetable of the railway project. We are now looking at reviewing the plans for the park development and the temporary structures issue in terms of looking if there is any potential delay on the development of the black boxes and the small spaces, which are important for the development of the smaller arts organisations in Hong Kong, that we're looking at the ability to be able to use the temporary structures on the park side of the West Kowloon site to be able to make up for any of those differences. And we'll clearly outline those plans when we come back at the 3rd of July or the 10th of July meeting in terms of developments.
OK， 下一位，我攞到個名。
Thank you. I read out Ms. Emily Lau, Gary Fan, Chen Kam Lam, Alan Leung. Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to talk about building up audience. I think we have talked about this a number of times. However, the paper is not detailed on that. The paper listed out a number of, say, free programs and invitation of artists to perform in Hong Kong. Of course, when there are programs, people can participate. But in the past, we were talking about how schools should be engaged so that children could be taught to appreciate the arts, not just Western arts, but all forms of arts when they were young. Have I missed anything here? There is no mention of audience development in schools or in education. Perhaps the PS thinks that to expand the audience, you organize free programs. But sometimes Western, in Western concerts, I think it's embarrassing when in between two movements, the audience gave a round of applause, and sometimes the conductor has to ask the audience to stop that applause, and expatriates would find it rather interesting. So not just the kids, we also want the local community to know how to appreciate the arts. So please tell us which paragraph shall I refer to so that you can spend more resources in this area. P.S. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for your question. Annex 2 of the paper. Now, education, arts education in school, and also our increase in resources in the past few years, and also the future direction. I hope that we'll be able to tell you what we are doing in schools. And please please refer to paragraph 31 of the paper. There are 6 programs there. 3 to 4 of them are targeted at students and young people. For instance, Ms. Emily Lau talked about appreciation of the arts and also among young people. Now, for higher education, for instance, well, at rehearsals, the director of drama production can guide the audience how to appreciate the play, and then reports would also be demanded. I think this is a way of teaching primary and secondary students how to appreciate drama. And then arts groups can also visit schools to have direct contact with students. I think this is something ongoing and gradual. You cannot expect students to have their ability to appreciate arts great enhanced overnight, but I think the plans have been well received. And also performing arts criticism project. I think this is starting to bear fruit. Students have responded very well to the guidance provided. Other than the LCSD, the Hong Kong ADC has also got the Cultural Ambassador scheme, which is quite good. It's been in place for a number of years. So this is gradual, and I will continue to put resources in this. Well, para 29, education in schools. All right, quite substantial resources. How much does that mean? There's no figure here. Can you tell us, PS? Well, para 29 is about resources from the ED Education Bureau. We have to ask the Bureau for the figures. Please do so. There is still some time. PS. May I remind the LCSD in sponsoring major arts groups? Please add gentle reminders to remind the audience think etiquette at concerts. For instance, please do not clap in between 2 movements, and a stand-up ovation after the performance is over, because there are many mainland visitors and also kids going to concerts. Well, it's natural that there are cultural differences. I think we can learn from one another. It's good to enhance their understanding, and it's also good to include some tips for better appreciation. This is a form of education as well. Okay, we have the opportunity to invite the Education Bureau, that is the Secretary for Education, to come. This is an important element. Mr. Gary Fan. Yes, I'm pleased to see that we're developing software, cultural software. Well, on the 3rd of July, there will be another meeting on the financial aspect. Still, LegCo has the responsibility to monitor this aspect. As said by the chairman, you can choose not to answer these questions, but I think we have the responsibility to ask you. According to reports in AM 730, a newspaper, there is already a twofold project overrun from the original budget of $21 billion is jumped to $47 billion. Although this morning you said that you're not going to comment on speculative reports. Still, I'd like to know, in early July when you meet with us, is it true that some of the projects will be sponsored or will be done by the government, except by Mrs. Carrie Lam? Because if the government isn't a good gatekeeper in money spending, well, you want to control costs, so we have the feeling that you're not doing a good job. Yes, we support the development of the arts and culture, but it is impossible that we should give you $2,000 billion. There is substantial budget overrun. Please, government, tell us, how are you going to gatekeep the spending on this? On the 3rd of July, when you give us the report, you must give us details. Consultancy fees, well, in in the past 3 years, well, the fee is higher than that for paying for staff emolument. Well, please jot down all the questions. I don't want to spend time on this. You should ask them to answer. You give them a chance. Well, but we have our agenda. But I do have the responsibility to monitor then. Yes. Please jot down the questions and give us a detailed paper and do it in July. But since May is already more than a month, well, there is no need for the administration to answer now. Authority, have you chosen not to answer? PS, have you done that? No, it's not the case. I don't want them to answer. Well, if we do it this way, then we will not be adhering to the agenda. Do you know our standing orders? I asked you before the meeting, and then what was reply to Ms. Claudia Mo? You said that you will allow the administration or the WKCDA to choose whether to answer or not. So you are not giving them the floor? Yes. Why? Because this is not within our agenda. Please jot down all his questions and give us a detailed reply on the 3rd of July. Chairman, there is no reason for us to help the administration. They should give LegCo an account. No, you have not helped the administration. Of course, I haven't. It's you. But this is not within the agenda. I have the duty to maintain order since you have digressed. But at the beginning, you allow Ms. Mo to do that, and you allow the administration to choose whether to answer or not. So are you going to give me an answer? P.S. Of course, we respect the wish of the chairman. To put simply, we have a meeting lined up for the 3rd of July, and I like to respond to speculative figures. And we are now preparing the relevant answers related to WKCD, and we'll give you a detailed answer on the 3rd of July. Any more questions, Mr. Gary Fan? Not from me. Thank you. Mr. Alan Leung. Yes, I'm very concerned about the subject, development of cultural software. So we need artists as well as arts administrators, technicians, stage workers, and also art critiques and the ambience of appreciation of the arts, and whether the audience have any appreciation abilities and so forth. Well, the paper is very detailed. But can you tell us, from the administration's or the WKCDA's point of view, whether you have any staged targets? For instance, by certain date, you want to have so many primary or secondary students that visited your museums, and also say the number of talents trained by the APA, and also art critics, so on and so forth. Do you have these interim goals so that we know whether the development of cultural software is up to our expectations? P.S. Well, development of arts and culture, as said by some members, it is about education, and it is something rather abstract. It may not be appropriate to add some to quantify the targets. If we look at arts policies of other places, it's not often that we have targets in hard figures. Well, with due respect, I just like to follow up. Well, you say that it is inappropriate to quantify the targets, but at least now recently the chairman and also Mr. Lai, they have been put on overseas training. So you have to tell us at least the number for each month or each year. Well, you cannot quantify the appreciation ability, but at least the number of visits organized for primary or secondary students. I'd like to ask the PS whether such things should never be thought of. Well, I was not done yet. I was about to say, if you look at statistics, you want statistics, we have plenty. We can give you, say, the targeted size of audience now for each performance. And we have $150 million in the coming few years to train 600 to 700 persons. So we have a very detailed breakdown. For instance, the ADC has trained, can train 29 per year, and then 5 years will give you more than 100, and also the number of visits to each theater. Every year when we discuss the budget, the controlling officer's report will give us indicators, the number of visitors, the money spent, for instance. If there are very specific questions, for instance, you'd like us to give you the targeted figures for a particular area, we can do so.
Well, with the abundant information in Annex 1, if they have stage targets and if they have more information, I hope they will supply the same to us. Could you supply the information after the meeting, please? There are some members who've just entered. Anyone else in the first round? Dr. Helena Wong. I'll draw a line. And after the first round, 3 minutes. Ms. Claudia Mo, second round. Mr. Chen Kam Lam, thank you. Just now, last night, the rubber duck in Victoria Harbour finished his performance in Hong Kong. It's reported that over 300,000 people went to Tsim Sha Tsui to look at it and say goodbye. It shows that when it comes to quality art exhibition, it's well received in Hong Kong. Previously, there are some exhibitions staged by M+. The WKCD did not announce the turnout, and there is no such information in the paper about how popular it was. It talked about the fact that it was well received, but I want to know about the turnover, the number of turnover. How many people appeared? Software is very important. You have to groom quality arts practitioners, or is it just about low quality and just popular and mediocre art form? Quality art is a reward to a good life, but we don't have talents in this regard. Yes, there are some arts practitioners, but we need to step up our effort when it comes to training a pool. I heard from Mr. Young that in the coming 5 years there will be a lot more resources devoted. I hope that it will be targeted so that we will really train quality art practitioners. And there are going to be some more hardware put in place in the future, and we need people to manage them. It's important to groom people who are in the creative and cultural industry. Equally important is the training of manpower to manage them. Well, there was going to be a cultural bureau, but because of the pandemic, it was shelved. There is no dedicated department for the cultural sector. So how will the administration give more opportunities for youngsters in Hong Kong to work, to develop a career in this regard? Mr. Lynch?
I'll just pick up the first part of the question in regard to the rubber duck. Clearly, I would question the estimate of the visitors, because most of the people who, and clearly admitted by Harbour City and by Wharf, who instigated the project, that most of the people viewing the duck are people who are shopping in the Harbour City complex. It was an extension of their entertainment. In that sense, it's probably no different from Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse coming to visit Harbour City. But no, I'm very glad that it's given Hong Kong a lot of entertainment over the period of time, and it's certainly, I think, helped lift the profile of the whole issue of inflatables. We have had the project on our site of the inflation exhibition. It has probably been the worst weather in Hong Kong in the last 20 years, but we have counted every member of the audience. Up until this weekend, we had 150,000 people make the effort to actually find their way onto the West Kowloon site to participate in the education activities and to see that exhibition. We're very conscious of the necessity to be able to bring audiences to the site and to participate in those activities, and we will continue those activities as we go forward. Certainly with the next Bamboo Theatre project, the Free
Okay, Mr. Lynch, yes, time up.
Well, I think for the other questions, perhaps the PS will answer if there is time later. Dr. Wong, I'd like to first ask this question about art administrators and their training. In tertiary education institutions, there are a number of training courses. They churn out over 1,000 graduates every year. It seems that the courses range from very good to quite poor when it comes to quality. Which bureau or which bureaus are responsible for quality assurance for these art courses to ensure that graduates are of a caliber that we need for further development in this regard? Usually for university courses, there is a committee under the Education Bureau and the UGC. They have the right to vet their own courses for the 8 institutions. They are the gatekeepers to decide what courses they should conduct, and the admission criteria, and also the future career of the graduates. Of course, the Education Bureau will monitor it, but it will not be a micromanagement because we respect academic autonomy. And I think it depends on whether there is a career for such courses, because without it, people won't enroll in these courses. As far as I know, the number of enrollment is quite good. Under the HAB, it's the Hong Kong Academy of Performing Arts. Each year they take in about 200 students. They have a very high threshold when it comes to admission. Competition is keen, and the students are of a quite high caliber. They don't enjoy a high salary, but if you look at the information on the cast and crew of these performances, you see that most of them are done by graduates of the Hong Kong APA. So the supply of these courses depends on the market situation. Any follow-up? Yes. There is under the UGC, there is a monitoring system for the university courses. But what about self-financing tertiary education institutes, say, for example, on administrators, on creative and cultural industries? Well, if you rely on the Education Bureau, then I'm concerned. This topic was discussed in a panel meeting. We have yet to have uniform or single regulator. The quality of courses varies. So people think that, well, as long as there is a course, it must be of good quality. But in the end, we found that there is no monitoring or supervision whatsoever because it is for the self-financing institutions to monitor them themselves. Yes. For APA, they have the self-financing courses. As far as I know, it's of quite high quality, and there are many people who enroll in it. And if there is insufficient funding, they can get the financial resources from this in this regard. I think is more or less market-oriented. Who else in the first round? If not, I'd like to ask some questions and make some comments. I think there is no knowledge management strategy in the administration. With the 50th anniversary of the City Hall, well, actually, there are a lot of courses and they have trained experienced managers and administrators. They have now reached the retirement age, but you don't engage them to pass on the knowledge to help in management of art groups and cultural venues. You think that you employ a couple of expatriates and that would do. But we do have a pool of local talents here and it's wasted. So will the administration find these experienced people? You don't necessarily have to give them gainful employment. Ask them to participate in committees so that they can share with us their experience. There are a lot of curators who have already retired, and they are very interested in serving the community. So it's not the case that we don't have a pool of talents. It's just that we don't know how to put them into good use. There is no good knowledge management. Do you agree? Yes, I agree with you when it comes to putting our talents into good use. Hong Kong is not of a closed mind, of course. We will find them to help us, but where sometimes we need crème de la crème to help us. When it comes to the LCSD, yes, they have trained a large pool of talents who are still quite active in the sector. If you look at the CEO of the Hong Kong ADC and also the repertory ballet and the Chinese orchestra, the CEOs, they have continued to provide their service after they have retired. And Dr. Pang helped in a lot of committees as invited by the LCSD. I think it depends on the individual whether they would like to continue to provide their service after the retirement. As far as possible, we will ask them to help. Ms. Priscilla Leung, 3 minutes. The WKCD is a huge project. We don't want it to turn into a white elephant. We want them to be a provider of art and culture, we also want to have a pool of people who appreciate it. The culture in Hong Kong is yet to mature. We are not like Taiwan. When it comes to primary and secondary education, I've repeatedly said in a panel that we need to start from a tender age to train them to appreciate art. And when it comes to resources in this regard, I know that one art teacher is responsible for teaching the entire school. So teaching becomes mechanical. Some children may love art, but they turn this into an examination. Say, for example, to turn a piece of art form into just a piece of information and ask the children to identify the year. We need to be able to appreciate art. We need to have an audience to support the market, the sector. Otherwise, you may have top-notch art administrators for the WKCD, but will there be an audience who can appreciate art? You have to start from basic education. We ask you to start communicating with them. They don't have enough funding for this in the schools. So there is only so much they can do. Would you allow the administration to answer? Ms. Emily Lau just now mentioned this point as well. The Education Bureau and us maintain close liaison. We're happy to see that in the new senior secondary academic structure, more time is devoted for students to come into contact with art and culture. In the annex, you find that the Education Bureau on primary and secondary schools on different levels. There are many different forms of appreciation, education, and also training. And in paragraph 31, well, the audience building also focus their efforts in schools. There are a number of programs and projects under the LCSD. There isn't much time for the second round. There are only 3 people, 2 minutes. Answer and question. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. I think the PS did not answer my previous question. I asked about software. Say in 3 years' time for the CHU, what will it be like? What role is to be played by the WKCD? And after the first 5 years, what will be the software like? Are there any indicators that you can give to the WKCDA for them to give you an assessment and for them to tell you what role they play in the whole picture? Some peers tell us whether you can do it. I think it is difficult for us to give you an answer to when it comes to quantified information. When it comes to we have the Koshan Theatre, the second phase expansion, and also a number of venues for a Chinese opera. Of course, there is the CHU's theatre in WKCD. There is a preliminary positioning. We want to be a forerunner in South China. The WKCDA can, taking into account of this positioning, adjust its target groups and future development. And for CHU development or Chinese opera development, they rely on the funding and there are also a training of young participants. In short, the role of the authority and that of the LCSD. How is it coordinated in the bigger picture? I still can't clarify. I still don't know what is it. Perhaps next time we will ask for a table to list out all the information and give the same to us in the next meeting. Ms. Claudia Mo. I think we should not just waste time on things like the English of the Hei Kok Yun. Just a Chinese opera instead of Xi-chu. Don't waste any more time and resources on it. And the second thing is about, well, please, you have to bear in mind that the rubber duck is from Holland, not Germany. And, and just now there's also mentioned that whether it is Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse, the number of turnout will be the same. And I think maybe you have slighted pop art. Andy Warhol. Is it the case that you slight this kind of art form? Is that the case? Who is to answer, Mr. Lynch?
Not. I had no intention of slighting pop art, and I certainly had no intention of slighting Andy Warhol, who's one of my great heroes. So from that point of view, I withdraw any aspersions I cast on popular art, popular culture, or Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. I was just making the point that, in regard to the duck, that it is there very cleverly used by the shopping centre to attract people to the shopping centre and to spend money. And from that point of view, our task with our project, the M+ inflation project, was to raise some different questions, some different issues, and I think it's been a benefit to have the two projects happening at the same time. One of them I regard as a legitimate visual arts project, and one of them as a very clever piece of shopping centre promotion.
OK， 下一位黃碧雲，最後一位。
多謝主席。
Dr. Helena Wong, last speaker. Mr. Chairman, I'm not clear about one point. For WKCD or M+, what about their collections? I understand that the LCSD had an allocation of $50 million for the procurement of works from local artists. I was told on that day that M+ would look at Hong Kong, Asia, China, or even the whole world. But at the end, the LCSD purchased local works for exhibition. For M+, we will have a gallery for visual arts. Where are we heading towards? Are we going to purchase local artists' works or the artworks of Asia, China, the world on Hong Kong? Or should we purchase visual art works that are not confined to Hong Kong? I may not have enough time. The second issue is M+ emphasizes the present. It also emphasizes Hong Kong. It will start from Hong Kong. It will launch exhibitions on visual artworks. But then if I look at the 6 plan makers, only one is a Hong Konger, or one who is familiar with Hong Kong culture. How can foreigners promote local visual arts? Will this be a shortcoming? Well, we'll require a written reply on this. 47 deputations will communicate with us. We'll invite them to come in. I think this meeting may exceed 1 p.m. So please try as far as possible to stay on.
OK， 我哋咧就一陣間咧會分兩節時間嘅，即係啲團體入嚟，因為
We'll have 2 parts for the deputations, session 1 and session 2, and in between we'll have a short break. The first session will end at 11:25.
OK。講咗先。OK。
Welcome, friends from the arts community. Thank you for attending this meeting so that you can communicate with us and with the WKCDA as well as amongst yourselves. Before we start, let me remind you that we have a bilingual meeting here. You can use your earpiece to listen to the proceedings. Channel 0 is Floor, Channel 1 is Cantonese, Channel 2 is English. I'd also like to remind you that you can state your views, but you not enjoy the protection and immunity under the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. That means you can freely speak, but please do not launch attack. Otherwise, we cannot protect you. The speaking time per deputation will be 3 minutes, all right? Because we have 40-odd deputations today, that will take us up to afternoon, so please be concise. Any question? If not, we'll start. First, Ms. Iris Wong from Young DAB. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I'm Iris Wong from Young DAB. We're discussing communication and cooperation with the arts community today. In fact, there had been criticisms about the WKCDA, about its positioning, pace of construction, and venues. We have to enhance communication with the arts community. Today, we have 47 deputations and individuals from the arts community. This indicates that the community attaches importance to the development of WKCD and would like to speak. Did the WKCDA talk to them and listen to their views? There's insufficient participation from the culture and art sectors. So how can we continue with this sort of collaboration? We'd like the authority to listen more to our views on facilities. Now, only the Shu-kun Center is more concrete. Other facilities are quite blurred. M+ is still under the design competition, and for the theater as well as the black box theater, we don't yet know the details. When are you going to start the blueprint? All these problems indicate that the authority very seldom contacts the arts and culture community. So we would like to have more communication with you. And then overspending is important. Ever since the establishment of the authority in 2008, it gave us the impression that it's a spendthrift. The construction cost increased from $1.3 billion to $2.7 billion, and the overall cost jumping from $21.6 billion to $47 billion, an increase of $25 billion. And also, many of their senior officers are very highly paid. Now, this indicates that the authority has not well managed its finance. So we would like them to control overspending. As regards the positioning of M+, it's based on the 20th and 21st centuries of visual art collections covering Hong Kong, mainland China, Asia, and the world. M+ will be an opportunity for the arts community. It will be a flagship museum to promote creativity. Its collections will directly impact on the art community. So, you should consider increasing local collections that will serve as a catalyst for local creativity. Next, Mr. Andrew Shin from the Lion Rock Institute. The FS, Mr. John Zhang, in his latest budget, put forward a proposal, that is, to give $400 million to students to study overseas. How is this related to WKCD, which is 40 hectares? Given the building density on West Kowloon behind it, after auction it will fetch $200 billion. Ms. Wong said that the WKCDA is a spendthrift. They're using very expensive office space. But the most expensive is the site itself. $200 billion can support every year 10,000 Hong Kong students to go overseas. Now, this project has been dragged on for many, many years. I've never imagined that in South Kowloon we can have a country park. People say that it takes a long period of time to do education. The Lion Rock Institute has already foreseen a white elephant. Not many Hong Kong people will walk onto the streets to celebrate WKCD. But the most annoying point is that given this $200 billion, we can annually give $10,000 for the students to go over 10,000 students to go overseas. Mr. Lynch mentioned the plastic duck. If Hong Kong is to reclaim land just for people to play on it, then I'd like to say that what's really wasted is the WKCD site, not the big duck. There are problems, actually, but they're trying to do remedial work. So I hope that the government can do more. The 85,000 housing units per annum was the core policy of Mr. Tung Chee-hwa. Even the Hong Kong Peninsula could be demolished. I suggested that it be converted into a memorial garden for the 85,000 housing unit policy. So for WKCD, please do better. Next, Mr. Matthias Wu from Zuni icosahedron. Well, Mr. Chairman, all along we've been in support of the WKCD project, but we're becoming more and more disappointed because we observed overspending and endless dragging along. Even for the Olympics, you see a closing ceremony, but for WKCD, we don't know when it will be completed. The LegCo has allocated $21.6 billion for the project, Why should there be overspending? And after injecting funds into hardware, what about software? When I visit their website, I don't see their business model in future. Shu-kun Center is also very expensive. So many people are living in subdivided flats. In fact, that sum of money can be used to build 10 PRH estates. And still, we don't know at this level of spending, we can actually complete the project. The construction cost has increased from $1.3 billion to $2.7 billion. I think the government should explain what index was adopted. Do you need architectural masters? In Japan, they have a theater costing $200 million with 800 seats. They could do that. Throughout the whole tendering process, who wrote the tendering documents? How was the tendering document written? Everything is out of control. We say we support creativity for SMEs. Many architects are jobless now. It's because the market is monopolized by the large architectural firms. We asked questions after questions with no avail. We're given indices, but we need somebody to explain the indices. Who should be held accountable? Michael Lynch or Dr. Chan or Ronald Cowley, who's the chairman, or Mrs. Carrie Lam? She's the overall chairman. And now we get spending after spending, nobody is liable. And Dr. Chan got his contract renewed. Well, outside the rumors that the overspending level is appalling. And through LegCo members, we would like to ask this. By WKCD, the government has the excuse not to add resources and funding to art development. Our spending in the arts community has never been able to catch up with the budget. Well, Mr. Lynch's contract will be very soon expiring, and the authority has to discuss whether or not to renew his contract. Next, Ms. Lisa Wong. Well, 15 years have lapsed since 1998, and we still don't see any completion date. Land issues, property markets, etc., etc. Our venues are ever shrinking, and operations have been more difficult for the arts community. The Shu-kun Center should follow its original time schedule and be commissioned on schedule. Besides, WKCD is a big cluster. All facilities should be mutually benefiting to create the cultural atmosphere and vision of Hong Kong. So sufficient funding should be given to the WKCDA to complete all the items. As for the CHUNG Center and its management and positioning, it should be locally based, and other items of other jurisdictions should only be secondary. Shu-kun Center should also play the educational role. There should be an arts director, an arts advisor, and a management team that respect art. Shu-kun Center should have his artistic director taken up by a local famous artist, including production and educational needs, so as to preserve and develop Shu-kun Center. That person must understand other forms of art and have good communication and personnel network. He should be far-reaching in his vision so that he can lead Shu-kun into the best of its kind in Asia and to form an exhibition platform. Shu-kun is also an art. It's actually an intangible world heritage. All along, it has been supported by the Hong Kong public, be it the repertoire or the artists involved, Shi-Chu has performed very well. It will become, and the Shi-Chu Center will become a comprehensive complex for foreign visitors. It should be accommodating and well integrated. I hope that it will be completed in schedule to form a new landmark for Hong Kong's spirit. Next, Mr. Yun Siu-Fai from the Chinese Opera Academy of Hong Kong. First of all, Shi-Chu Center should have a dedicated education floor. We have a perfect academy of performing arts which does teach Shi-Chu. But in primary school and secondary school, we've never come into contact with this art form. So you cannot expect adults to start learning the different Shi-Chu skills. So we must have a perfect education floor in the Shi-Chu Center. We must also have good educational programs so that our children can start from a young age at the primary level or secondary level. In Shi-Chu in Hong Kong, more performers are from the mainland than from Hong Kong. We're using Hong Kong money. Why not nurture Hong Kong children? Besides, in the past, many people commented on the English translation of Shi-Chu. Let me here say very seriously and solemnly that Shi-Chu is not opera. When you watch opera, do you see somersaulting? Do you see all sorts of Shi-Chu skills, like playing with your sleeves? Shi-Chu has been in existence for over a century. Why do we use Putonghua to translate that? Because we have over 300 local Shi-Chu forms throughout the world. So we want a general Putonghua translation, that is Shi-Chu. I will disregard insult, teasing, or attacks from various sectors. Here, I won't oppose such attacks. I'd like to say that those of us in the Shi-Chu sector, why do we want Shi-Chu as the translation and not opera? I just explained it. For dim sum, why don't you say Chinese dessert? Why not translate Kung Fu as Chinese boxing? We're insulting ourselves. For the Japanese, it is non instead of Japanese blah, blah, blah. The Japanese also transliterate their art forms. So we must be clear about our own positioning. Here, I speak on behalf of all those friends in the world who are in Shi-Chu. I, Yun Siu-Fai, will be held liable for all my words.
Well, you might want to supplement your views with a written submission. Ms. Tang Shu-wing from Tang Shu-wing Theatre Studio. Now, if I'm talking about a contemporary drama. Now, in fact, subsidized artists are actually service providers and also educators of the public, because the tickets have to be kept at low price, and there's been innovation. So at very low cost, the members of the public can learn and appreciate this new form of performance. However, since the millennium, now young people are waiting for a subsidy from the government. Many people would want arts activities to enrich the learning experience, enrich the personality development of the children. However, if the children want to become career artists, parents would object. So even if young people want to become artists, they have to bear a lot of pressure. And then because of non-profit making reasons, the reward they get is very minimal, and they have to engage in just non-profit making drama activities, so they don't have any commercial experience. No matter how experienced you are, once you no longer receive government subvention, you are a novice. So, and there is no audience building. There are only about 8,000 to 10,000 regular goers. So culture is actually a soft power of a nation. We must ensure that we can influence the world using our software, cultural software. So we must have a proper positioning, and we should not think that it is a form of social service. We should not just rely on government subvention. There must be favorable conditions for some play productions to showcase local characteristics and attract both local and overseas audience, so that we can be sustainable and become a creative industry. This has already happened in many other places of the world. There are long-running plays in other places, and they can go on overseas trips and tours. So it is important. We have to ensure that we can encourage exchange and also contribution by players in the industry, so that we can then supplement the government's subvention policy. My studio is trying to stage long-standing performances, and we will work with the tourism industry so that we can have a new environment, and we'll also exchange views with WKCDA on long-running performances. Thank you. Mr. Lam Kong, Hong Kong Oil Painting Research Society. Good morning. I have 4 points to make. We should have a culture bureau because there's so many issues involving WKCD. Management and budget and so forth. So I hope we will not politicize this issue, because arts and culture transcend politics. It is something, a heritage we leave for our future generations. And we should also have an arts institute or an arts research institute, because when we go overseas for exhibition, tens of millions of dollars have to spend on it, and schools have also spent a lot of resources. So why don't we pool the resources in an arts institute so as to nurture future talents? I think it is a very worthwhile project. And thirdly, professional artists. Now, some of them, 15, have joined the WKCDA. How many of them have received proper arts training? Well, very few of them. So it's always the layman leading the industry. How can they do a good job? I think we can all comment on the collection of the museums. Well, the inflatable exhibition. There is an inflatable sculpture that resembles poo-poo. So what is the concept, the idea behind that exhibition? We no longer can tell the difference between good and evil, the ugly and the beautiful. So, well, we've spent so much money on this. Why don't we have an arts magazine? Because we need a showcase for art critics, so even if we have large-scale exhibitions, international performances, well, I think it is easy to cheat the public using this. So why don't we do something substantive? Fourthly, we should set up a committee for vetting the future collections of WKCD. This is a very important thing. How many of you have seen the performances or the collection of the WKCD Museum? We have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire the collection. We must have something that can be a heritage of our posterity. Well, there is too little time for me to air my views. You can give us a written submission. Thank you. Ms. Janet Tam, Arts with the Disabled Association Hong Kong. Thank you. The association has this major proposal for WKCD. The facilities should be there to be shared by all regardless of their age and also abilities. And we should continue to expand the audience and nurture artists covering all age groups and all sorts of abilities. So there should be barrier-free access there. We have engaged in an iterative process with WKCDA, and recently have done a few substantive things. For instance, the accessibility of WKCD, Hong Kong CSS, and among our has done a briefing for us on accessibility, and someone from the WKCDA came to listen to our views. Of course, there will be follow-up. It's just a start. So direct dialogue with the stakeholders aside, we notice that WKCDA has invited overseas experts on accessibility and also planning of inclusive art to come to give talks in Hong Kong. And even after these experts have left, we have also done a 2-hour workshop for docents in this area. I think we should continue to communicate with stakeholders, introduce overseas experience. At the same time, we should localize our own experience so that such experience can be spread or can be passed on to future users and administrators of WKCDA. So WKCDA should continue to train its staff and volunteers, because future performances and programs should be meant for everyone in the community right from the planning stage. We can only see a very initial idea in this regard, and we want the authority and the management of WKCD to have a clear barrier-free guidelines so that both hardware and software can achieve this purpose, so that everyone indeed can have a share in WKCD. Thank you. Ms. Ada Wong, Hong Kong Institute of Contemporary Culture. Thank you, Chairman. Well, because of time constraint, I will just mention 2 main points. Myself is not just concerned about the budget overrun of WKCD, but how it is built and what it can be built and how it's going to be managed. Legislators should continue to monitor the financial aspect. Now there is visual arts, museums and performing arts in WKCD, but I fail to see there are people who have the vision, who know the arts, to look at the overall layout of WKCD, because it is a whole district. You don't have just a few trees or 2 major facilities. How is this cultural district different from our other areas? There is a big park. Well, my friends and from the arts community, with the exception of the arts community, are very concerned about the park. It is a park for arts and culture. But we have no precedent in Hong Kong. Now, if you look at parks run by LCSD, you will, can you visualize the future? WKCD park, will it be just like any other LCSD park? I hope it is not. I'm concerned who is going to do the design. From what I've heard, an international master might be entrusted to do it, spending $200–300 million. Now, does he know what we want? We said that we wanted a green WKCD. I have run a few programs there. Well, young people, they can just play band on the lawn, and they can spend the time starting in the afternoon until twilight, and that is already very good. So I hope that WKCD can give people the sense of freedom. So who is going to plan or design the big park? Who will be responsible for community engagement? Can we create the space together? What kind of public arts are we talking about? And let's not talk about the rubber duck or the inflatable sculptures. Who will take the lead in the planning? I hope it is not by WKCDA but by the community. This is a big issue, so I hope you can be concerned about this. Don't just be concerned about money. And also the money spent on the C3 Center. Have we asked who will be the board of directors? Will the board be fully responsible, or is it just like an umbrella starting from the authority? Top down, we send young people to learn from overseas is excellent, but when they are back, they may tell you that, well, there they have a cultural autonomy, whereas in Hong Kong everything is top down. We should not just let the person at the top to have all the say. So what will be the governing structure? Do we have any professional from the cultural sector included? Thank you. Mr. Otto. Yeah, I'd like to declare interest. I'm also a member of the WKCDA board. However, I'd like to speak in the capacity of Yau Chi Mong District Councillor. Now, the Yau Chi Mong District Council should have interaction with WKCDA. Starting from the last term, the District Council already set up a working group on concern for the development of WKCD, but perhaps it was just a very initial stage. And after a review, we believe that it was not too effective or useful, so the working group was disbanded. But that doesn't mean that the District Council is not concerned about this subject. In this term, District Councillors who discuss traffic and transport issues and also infrastructure development. We've invited WKCD authority to discuss with us. Sometimes we had heated debates, so it's on a topic by topic basis. And then we've also set up a coordinating committee on arts and cultural activities, so as to build up the audience in our district to enhance the ambience and to enhance interest. We had a cooperation with the Hong Kong Arts Association of Hong Kong and also the Chung Theatre to increase to build an educational and appreciative element. WKCD authority or the district can see its communication of the District Council enhanced. For programs run by the authority or outsourced by the authority, some district councillors believe that communication with district councillors could be improved. In the past, the situation was not very desirable or satisfactory, as said by Ms. Ada Wong. We are very concerned about the big park in WKCD. In other aspects, perhaps the district council doesn't have as big a role to play, but because the park will be open to all, we are worried that the activities might affect the residents nearby. And Ms. Ada Wong also asked what will be the management structure. We want the district council has a greater role to play. At least we can express our views from the perspective of the local community so that they can comment on the management and operation of the park. Thank you. Mr. John Batten from Hong Kong International Association of Art Critics Hong Kong.
Chairman, I find it quite depressing coming to a forum like this and just hearing attacks on everything that the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority have been doing. I've been to the Town Planning Board to discuss the plans and the master plan, and I've noticed that one of the roles of the staff of West Kowloon is to balance the various bureaucracies and interests. And one of the things they're doing, as we know, with our experience of dealing with the bureaucracy, especially the Leisure and Cultural Service Department, is to try and cut through some of the rubbish that we have to deal with. over the weekend. In the last few days, I again visited inflation, and then I went to the new facility at Oil Street, set up by the APO office of the Leisure and Cultural Services Department. And I must say it's a complete contrast in approach. You've got vital young people at the inflation show, and you've got boring bureaucratic types and security guards at the Oil Street facility. I just want to talk very briefly in these few minutes about two issues. One is the governance issue. Alan, for example, the Vice Chairman of the committee, will remember many years ago we all sat in this, or in the previous chambers, and talked about our vision for West Kowloon, and point by point we went through the ordinance. And the administration, like its approach to democracy in Hong Kong, is a bit similar. We have not moved in formulating the governance of the various parts of the West Kowloon Cultural District. My personal concern is M+. It should be like every other good museum in the world. It should be independent, and it should have a board. And that way you can ensure a high level of autonomy, and also it will inevitably bring good things to the museum. Because unlike my so-called member of the visual arts community, I support things like inflation, because I think our young people and our population needs to see alternatives. And if anyone went to the inflation show, they would have just seen a whole lot of happy people. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Koo Tin Long Chung Ying Theatre Company. A decade ago, I was asked by the press about what I see in WKCD. What I said then is still true. You can't lose sight of the forest because of a tree. And the other way around, if you rely solely on West Kowloon, it doesn't work. So some people talk about Education Bureau. We're talking about the general plan for Hong Kong. This is complicated. We need to see it in a more macro perspective. And also do not to more focus on hardware than software. I'm talking about those that build it and those who use it. By those who use it, I mean students, audience. Where do they come from? And this point has been touched on before. And if you say that instead of WKCD, I use the $2 billion to nurture software, I would agree with it, because software is very important. And I've also heard some contention about whether famous overseas long-standing shows will be imported to Hong Kong. I don't object to that, but you have to put the emphasis on local culture. I don't object to overseas production, but you have to put the emphasis on local culture to educate our local audience. And I'm also concerned about one thing. The art groups, the artists, what's the relations between them and the WKCD? I don't know. I want a clearer picture. Say, last time there were some meetings about residency or otherwise. There were different views, but you need to forge a relations. And yes, in the future we will have WKCD. What about program? What about artistic direction? Well, if you can have a competition for the general design for WKCD, and you pick the best one, and the same applies to CG Center, then you can outsource the entire thing so that it will be put to a fair competition. If you have a proposal, put it in. If you have some ideas about how this theatre is to be run, whether a cooperation should be forged with the business sector or not, and about development of audience building, and outsource the entire thing. Thank you. Mr. Yan Hui-Chang, Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra Limited. We were set up in 1979, and we established ourselves in Hong Kong, and we promote Chinese culture to the rest of the world. We're recognized to be a cultural ambassador. We're the resident group. We have reached a number of milestones. We are highly regarded and recognized as an art group. We've been to many different performing venues in the world. Carnegie Hall, Manchester Music Hall, and a famous performing venue on the mainland as well. When it comes to Chinese music, we are very good in promoting it. In Hong Kong, whether it's the cultural center or some other performing venues, the acoustics and the design is not very good for Chinese instrumental music. So when it comes to WKCD, we have high expectations. We hope the music theatre will be different from the ones in Hong Kong or those ones in the world, because Hong Kong is a melting pot of Chinese and Western culture. And we advocate sharing with the people. I am happy to see that there was once a design that made us very happy because they have incorporated that element. We think that education is also very important. We hope that we can speak to the authority and have better communications and more cooperation opportunities with them when it comes to design of these music theatre, so that it will better accommodate our needs. The WKCDA and the committees said in the report that Chinese music will be one of our important areas. The music theatre will adopt the latest technology so that individual parts can be better taken care of. With this specially designed music theatre, then this will be the only performing venue with the best technology accommodating different types of music in the world. We hope that we will be a long-standing partner with the authority to serve the community. Next, Mr. Chen Kim-pan, Hong Kong Repertory Theatre. When it comes to professional art groups, we do need residency, and I'd like to focus on that. I hope the authority will, as soon as possible, talk to potential art groups that can be the resident. And I'd also like to talk about hardware and also training of manpower. Our concern is that the direction of the WKCD may be lopsided towards the Western production, like Broadway, the West End, without giving equal regard to local production. So we need to explore in the direction of residencies and the positioning of the different art groups to feel the to see if the art groups are interested to become residents, so that the WKCD will showcase a local cultural characteristics. You will have to invite art groups to be residents so that we can effectively respond to the design, so that we comments, the users' comments will be incorporated in the design, so that specifications will be better improved to accommodate our needs. We're training talents, but are there any chances for these people to work in a WKCD? So when it comes to training and recruitment, they need to talk to the sector instead of just hiring retired civil servants. You need to draw in new blood. When it comes to cooperation with the cultural sector, there is a building of software. We hope the authority will, before the performing arts revenues are completed, give some rehearsal. Say, for example, our theatre. At the beginning of next year, we will have Black Box Theatre Festival. We are actually having discussions about cooperation, because we know that the WKCD would like to turn a Black Box Theatre into another performing venue. We can build a long-standing show so that art groups will be given a chance to flourish. Next, Mr. Lee Ting-chun, Hulala. Good morning. I'm the director of the Hulala. We were established in 2000, so over 10 years now. We're a non-profit making organization. We engage in street performances. Sunday in Victoria Harbour, Saturday night in the Avenue of Stars. Over 10 years, we have had many street performances. Every time there are 5 to 6 performing teams. So in the past decade, we have staged over 1,000 shows. We advocate and promote Hong Kong original local music. We are grassroots culture, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the finesse. I find that a lot of youngsters who started off as a street performance in the end become professionals. We would like to give the opportunity for people who are interested so that they can have further development. In the US, Europe, and Asia, they all have special characteristics, but that is not the case in Hong Kong. That's puzzling. If you perform in the streets, you'll be charged. It's bizarre. But we don't want to see what's happening in Mong Kok. People are fighting for space. We don't advocate busking. Well, that's what's happening in Mong Kok. We don't really agree with that, because that will create commotions and possible obstruction. We hope that in the WKCD there will be a music street that belongs to the locals. I think there is a successful example in Korea. There is a street where youngsters performing music and dance and other art forms. Behind that street or in the neighboring area, there are lots of shops, which is in turn a tourist attraction. So if we can have something similar, it will be a win-win situation. Shops will have more businesses, and people can appreciate the street performances. Thank you. Next. Dr. CC CHUNG. Hello, good morning. I'd like to talk about how to play to Hong Kong's advantage to develop our cultural industry. There are local talents, local artists, local art groups. We would like to be the forerunner in the sector. So we have 4 proposals, 4 suggestions. First, to have a comprehensive development of art society. We have to find a systematic system for its development, and you will engage experienced local artists to take stock of what we have, so that society can and people from outside Hong Kong can all participate in the discussion. And we should start from local culture. If WKCD doesn't use local art as a starting point, it will be a shame. And contemporary artists should be given more chances. Say, for example, an art collection should include local artists. This is another important means to further development. In the past, the administration has done little. There are a lot of quality artists in Hong Kong. We need a venue to showcase their art pieces. So WKCD plays a very important role in this regard. There should be a local art gallery. I am a runner of a local gallery. I know that it is very difficult to run a gallery in Hong Kong because there is a very little support. So I hope the WKCDA will pay attention to this and put in place supporting facilities for local gallery to, say, for example, forge exchanges with mainland and Taiwan, and to organize exchange sessions of artists of different groups. There is also art consumption. It is also very important. Ms. Zhang, you can give us your written submission. Your time's run out. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lin Ming Chen. I'll only talk about our views. This should be M+ should be the only visual art performing venue. It's just like the one in New York, the one that showcased contemporary arts, and should be comparable to the Louvre, Metropolitan Museum of Arts, the Hermitage Museum. We need to have a visual arts museum showcasing local characteristics. We have our own local characteristics, local culture. You can't find it anywhere else in Hong Kong. So, well, if you want to see local art, then you have to go to M+. And if you want to look at Russian art, you have to go to Hermitage Museum. I'm talking about visual art, like the special shrimp. This is a local breed. You can't find it overseas. You can only find it where you can find it at the estuary of the Pearl River Delta. And also about the Hong Kong artists. There are some that are locally bred, some coming from Macau, Taiwan, or the rest of the world. We share Hong Kong. You find different art forms in Hong Kong. Different schools. I'm sorry, my time is up. Members will read your submission. Thank you very much. Next, Ms. Jennifer Chow, Hong Kong Cantonese Operatic Singing Alliance.
Cantonese opera is our traditional art and also local art. Is very much welcome by the public. Therefore, in our opinion, apart from Shi-Chu Center, WKCD should have a Shi-Chu museum so as to do heritage work well. We have to exhibit the history, achievements, and contents of Shi-Chu development so that when members of the public visit the museum, they can be moved and enlightened by Shi-Chu. They should understand the evolvement history of Shi-Chu. We visited the Cantonese Opera Museum in Foshan recently. Apart from an exhibition venue, it's also a tourist attraction and contribute to tourism and economy. In Hong Kong, the collection of Shi-Chu materials is rather dispersed. There's no effective collection of materials for research purposes. So we suggest that the Shi-Chu Museum be set up. There should be 4 standing galleries covering the development history of Cantonese opera, the materials of the famous personnel, dedicated archives, and a database for repertoires. There should also be smaller seminar rooms, rehearsal rooms, and so forth. By electronic collating, the literature on Shi-Chu can be more focused and concentrated to facilitate research. The various skills of Shi-Chu, the history of development, etc., should be researched into, and material should be collected. This will help preserve the heritage of Shi-Chu and allow for further development. So apart from setting up this Shi-Chu Center, the WKCDA should consider a Shi-Chu museum so as to enhance the content and attraction of Hong Kong as a Shi-Chu Center. And the authority should also listen more to the views of the local communities. In future, it should liaise and contact and communicate with the Shi-Chu sector. And there should also be collaboration. This is the first time we have contact. I hope that this contact can be sustainable, such that we can explore more and exchange more on this proposed Shi-Chu Museum, which will be very charismatic. Mr. Wan Chi-pang, I'm also a member of the Alliance. I'm a young person who is very enthusiastic on Cantonese opera. A database on Shi-chu will be very useful so that we can dig up materials about famous Shi-chu figures in the past. Shi-chu is very worthy of our appreciation. As for the famous repertoires, records, programs, and so forth, they should form part of our daily life. They are materials for appreciation. Ms. Jennifer Chow has already spoken at length on this. I just want to supplement. Next, Mr. Wong Kwok Fan. Ms. Jennifer Chow has roughly spoken my mind. I very much agree with Mr. Matthias Wu. He said that government resources have all been placed in WKCD. As a result, we lack space in many performance venues. The Kwun Tong Community Hall should be completed in 3 years' time, but I heard that the project had been shelved, so we're in more acute shortage of venues. So I really don't know when the WKCD will be completed such that we can have more venues for performances. As for street performances, singing, etc., Cantonese opera is also included. In Sham Shui Po Park, for over a decade, members of the public were singing Cantonese opera there. So we need performance venues. All the resources are focused on WKCD, but now I see nothing come forth. I only saw a very big setup there. Ms. Judy Pang, I'm also a member of the Alliance. It's very important to have a museum there. I'd like to mention one point. The management of the museum must be taken up by people from the Cantonese opera sector. When we had that study tour in Foshan, we discovered that if an outsider is to manage a Shi-chu museum, the effect won't be very good. That's all I want to say. Next, Mr. Kong Chun Kit. Oh, all right. He's not going to speak. Sorry. One more. Ms. Angel Leung. Thank you. Mr. Chen Kai-to, Ms. Jennifer Chow has already spoken our mind. Ms. Choi Wai-shan, or not going to speak either. Thank you. So I'd like to invite the officials and the WKCDA to respond first. First of all, from the Home Affairs Bureau, overall speaking, any response? Mr. Chairman, I don't think I have time to address each and every comment raised just now. To a certain extent, we agree to most of the comments made just now. If any government department has not done enough, we'll be alerted to that and make improvement. Together with the WKCDA, we'll develop the various venues, and we hope to see continuous collaboration of the art community. I believe there'll be a lot of occasions in future for us to communicate. WKCDA, any response? If so, 5 minutes, please.
Can I just say to all of you, thank you very much for your contributions, even those that I don't agree with or I don't like, or those that I do like. I think it's very important at this stage that there is ongoing feedback from the artistic community in terms of this project. It was a project born out of the aspirations of the Hong Kong artistic community. They determined in the consultations what venues they wanted, how those venues were going to be built, and how they sat within the overall site. We recognise a number of the issues that you've raised. I do reject the comments that the organisation has been a spendthrift, in that we have only spent over the course of the years since 2008 $950 million, and I think it's important that it is recognised between the arts community and the WKCD the importance that we see in being able to build this for the future of Hong Kong. It's not for the future of the WKCD, it's for the future of Hong Kong, and I think that's important. I also recognise a predominance of views around the Shu Theatre and the importance of why that building has been built first. It recognised from all of our consultations the importance of that art form to the people of Hong Kong, and clearly that's why we hope to complete the building in time by 2016. We recognise it has a very important educational role in terms of the development of the art form. It also recognises the importance of the art form not just in Hong Kong but in broader China, and we hope to be able to recognise the balance between the protection and the development of Cantonese opera, but also to recognise that it sits within a broader context of the 300 forms. In regard to the visual arts, we recognise that in the establishment of a contemporary art museum, that some people are going to like it and some people aren't going to like it. I do think that it is important that fairness dominates in this discussion. Clearly, contemporary art of its nature is often controversial. It provokes comment and criticism, and we assume that is likely to be the case going forward. We are clearly committed to making sure that we support the idea of Hong Kong as the central tenet of the M+ Museum, but we also must recognise that the importance of what goes on in China and the rest of Asia, and we see the development of the collection reflecting that we start from Hong Kong, we go through China and the rest of Asia, and that's important. I'm particularly pleased to hear from the Arts for the Disabled that we've had good communication. It's clearly a personal view of mine that Hong Kong is well behind international standards on universal access and on many of the areas of engaging with the disabled community, including disabled artists, and we want to see that as something that distinguishes all of the venues on the West Kowloon site. I think we recognise the strong messages in regard to local talent, local performers and local arts organisations, and we look forward to continuing these discussions. To any of the groups that we have not been able to address, I think my team have spent a large amount of time talking to the communities and talking to the artists and the arts organisations. We recognise there is still work to do. I guess from our point of view, we see it as important that that is ongoing work, but that we need some adequate time frame to be able to ensure that the buildings are realised, and then we start recognising the importance of the residency agreements, the training and the programming demands. I would reject a comment that was made that the whole project is lopsided to Broadway and Western Theatre. I just don't think that has any credence whatsoever. We clearly have done nothing in terms of Western forms on the site. We led with the festivals, we've followed it through with the other events, and I think it's important that we keep those sorts of comments in perspective. We look forward to further comments and we look forward to engagement. Our doors are open. We recognise that if we cannot satisfy the demands of the local community, then we're not doing our job. So I guess that's where I'd finish.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lynch. 跟住落嚟呢，我哋就進行
Next, questions. Members from questions. First round. Ms. Emily Lau, Dr. Helena Wong, Ms. Chen Yinhan, Ma Feng Kwak, Alan Leong, Sit Ho, and Claudia Mo have raised their hands. I can only entertain one round of questions, 4 minutes each, covering questions and answers. First, Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the deputations and individuals for coming here to give us their views. We're calling this session because apparently members of the art and culture sectors are saying that they find it difficult to communicate with the government and the WKCDA. Ms. Wong said that there's not enough sufficient communication. You just heard Mr. Lynch respond. In what way do you think you can bring your views home to the government and the WKCDA? How can you allow organizations to participate, venue problems, governance problems? How can we expand the audience base so as to make art and culture prosper? In LegCo, each of you can speak for a few minutes. So maybe you can offer more comments. They're listening to you. Please be concise. We would like to accommodate more speakers. The arts community had numerous meetings with the government, but we saw nothing come forth. So, well, Ms. Lisa Wong, I have to be fair to them. The Shi-kun Center will be the first structure. Ever since Mr. Lynch took up his post, he did communicate with the art and culture community. For example, how a performance venue could be set up, where the Shi-kun Center should be, how to start publicity for WKCD, etc., etc. Within a short time, they have shown us their sincerity. But then the whole WKCD embraces a lot more. So I think it's more advantageous for the Shi-kun Center to start first. Well, Ms. Lisa Wong said that she was being fair. What about other deputations? There's no room for communication. There's no venue for exhibition. There are no forums for expressing our views. There are a lot of headaches, but we cannot air them. As for the first batch of collections, who had ever seen them? WKCDA management, did they vet those collections? $180 million on that first batch of collections. Who had ever vetted them or seen them? Ms. Ada Wong, under the WKCDA ordinance, there's a consultative committee, and I'm a member, so I have to declare interest. Frankly speaking, I'm also disappointed. The consultative committee only convened 1 or 2 meetings per year, and important issues were not discussed. Last time I asked about the park, the overall layout. What about this overspending issue? There's no response. We're only told how in future the promenade would be leased. There are 2 tiers of questions here. First of all, there must be communication with the art and culture community, and we should make it a standing mechanism. We must tell the public what the WKCDA is doing. Stakeholders cover all members of the public, not just the art and culture sector. The dissemination ability is very weak.
Emily, we must all remember that this is a project evolving. It's not in action at the moment. It's being built. There have been a number of forums for all of us to participate. One of them, a very major one, was the Town Planning Board and the discussion of the master plan. Now, I agree with Ada. I think there are big problems and serious concerns about the park. And one of them is, if you read the papers for this committee today, you realise that one of the problems West Kowloon have got to deal with is the monopoly of the MTR taking over its space. And they have no venues at the moment.
Okay.
And they need to, just one more point. And they need to build temporary venues on the park.
Thank you. 周傑兵簡短。
Thank you. Ms. Jennifer Chow, please be brief. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. We would like to know more information about WKCD, but we don't know where to get those information. We need the broad blueprint as well as the fine details. They need to contact with all sectors of the community. Xi-chu is something deep into the hearts of the public. Therefore, the management of the government and the WKCDA should go down to the grassroots of the public. Dr. Helena Wong, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the deputations and individuals for telling us their views. A number of comments were about the M+ team. It's said that not many members of that team are familiar with Hong Kong's art and culture. Just now we heard that all venues on WKCD must manifest the local art and culture of Hong Kong. If it is Cantonese opera, then we should manifest local Cantonese opera. If it is stories, then the exhibition should display local stories of Hong Kong. I'd like to know to what extent the senior government officials and the management of the WKCDA are worried about those aspects.
Mr. Lam Kwang, this is, of course, my great worry, because the WKCD authority or management know very little about Eastern or Hong Kong local arts. We need such experts to be included into the authority. There are a dozen or so members in the authority, but only a few of them are related to the arts or cultural sector. However, they are administrators instead of artists. So how can we do a good job? It's impossible. It is such a big cultural industry. Well, a U.S. philosopher said that there are philosophical, arts, and musical issues, but the biggest issue is the arts issue. Do you know this? So you just put inflatable sculpture, a pool there. What kind of arts is that, Mr. Lam? Well, for dramas and performing arts. Well, I went to the grand finale of a local drama production last night, and then there were also a few very famous drama local productions. So these can be long-running programs. So do we when visitors come to Hong Kong, they want to see something local. They don't want to see Les Miserables or the tea shop staged by Beijing. No, they want something contemporary, local. So have we communicated with the authority? Yes, but I have a date of spring. Can we have? Can we run it for a year? Well, it's not possible because we don't have a big enough audience. So we must nurture our future audience, and the tourism industry should help us as well.
Mr. Lam is saying the arts community, of course, is very diverse, and you've got a very conservative view over here. The arts community, the visual arts community, is made up of, let's say, of the main visual arts community is made up of graduates from the Chinese University and now the Visual Arts Centre of the Baptist University, also the Polytech University. Now, they are well-respected people. They're seen by the staff of M+. And if you actually want to compare again LCSD, then I think you'd be quite shocked at the lack of rapport that the main museum staff in Hong Kong have with the mainstream visual arts community, compared to a team that is struggling. They don't have a venue. They're curators who are trying to get to know something. And one of them, a very senior member from LCSD, Stella Fong, I mean, she's now on the team of M+. So what do you want?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burton. 下一位陳婉嫻。
Madam Chang-Han. Thank you. This morning we talked about the cultural software, and I put some questions to the PS. I think many deputations or individuals share our views. While WKCD is developing, how do we position local artists? I like to say this to deputations. When we talked about WKCD, we got rather angry when we came to this point, and I asked Mr. Lynch, do we need an English-speaking person before he has international experience? Now, there are plenty of such persons in Hong Kong. And when we build bridges, there is this important concept of technology transfer. Now, we have our own values, and of course, the West has its own values. How can we ensure that local persons can be involved? Complaints I received is that they are not involved. And I've also got this general impression from deputations and individuals. So my question to the PS, how can we ensure that in the process of establishing WKCD, there can be interaction between overseas and local experts? PS, I think it is a question better for the WKCD, because it's talking about how local persons can be benefited. No. Allow me to finish first. I think he's already answered this, but the answer is rather useless. Ms. Matthias, who said that you continue to recruit from overseas. This is not a problem, but what about local persons? I don't want to ask WKCD, but the government, because after all, it's government policy. How can your policies ensure that local personnel can be integrated?
In front of the deputations that I said earlier in my response. Now, 10% of our staff come from overseas. The reason they come from overseas is because someone in Hong Kong decided that you didn't have that expertise, whether it relates to me as Chief Executive or the other people that have been brought in to address the other skills deficiencies in being able to build the museum, to be able to build the performing arts side, and to help build the organisation. We have been very judicious in the choice of the people. We have always recruited in Hong Kong first, and then if we haven't been able to recruit from Hong Kong, we've then gone out to the outside world. I am very freely able to recognise that the fact that I only speak English in the Australian version is a limitation on direct contact with members of the Hong Kong community, but I have been coming to Hong Kong since 1964, so I'm not regarded as a complete outsider. I do have an understanding of the people from here, and I think that's relevant to being able to construct the organisation. Clearly, as we go forward, we have always indicated that this...
Enough. PS, your supplement? Ms. Chen-Han asked about the government's policy. Well, it's simple. In Hong Kong, I believe we should recruit the best persons to be responsible for our arts and culture. Under this policy, if we need to employ a small proportion of overseas experts, we should not hesitate to do so. And as I said, we're going to spend $150 million to train local arts administrators so they can have attachment overseas, and when they are back, I'm sure they can contribute to the training of local talents as well. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Thank you. I have a different question to ask. Now, the deputations are all from the arts community. WKCD has been established for 3 years, and they have got their own team lined up for almost 2 years. From your own experience, either be your observations or feelings, what do you think about the cultural software of Hong Kong? In particular, with the establishment of WKCD, do you think there's been any change in this regard? Can you share with us your feelings? Whoever would like to answer this. Mr. Matthias Wu, anyone more? Mr. Wu, thank you. Improvement. No improvement. Deterioration instead. Take the hardware aspect. Venues. The government would always use WKCD as an excuse when we want new venues, and we ask for new resources. WKCD, the Treasury claims that WKCD has got a lot of money, so there won't be extra resources for you. For performing arts, it's already better. For visual arts, now we know that the ones who talk about a literary museum, but we don't know where it is now. So people say that there is a big step backward since the establishment of WKCD. However, it's not that WKCD is not doing anything, but it's nothing relevant to Hong Kong because it's about internationalization. If we haven't got the local things right, I don't know why we want to go internationalized. And for overseas experts, can we accommodate them? I don't know. Perhaps I am not seeing enough. Speakers not coming through. I'd like to ask, are you aware that, do you know how inclusive and how accommodating we are in the arts sector? Do you know what are the, well, I'd like to know whether you've sensed any change in the past 2 years, but not other things. My feeling is that things have gone worse, because what they do is different from what we have in Hong Kong. Such as, what they've been doing is nothing local, nothing related to our local characteristics. Any change? What change? Ms. Ada Wong. Well, responding to Mr. Ma's question, well, WKCD has been established for more than 5 years. In 2008, the ordinance was enacted by LegCo. The ecology has certainly not improved in any way. On the surface, the government might have spent extra resources such as Art Development Fund, and also art administrators can be an attachment overseas. Yes, extra resources for that. But if we look at the cultural ecology, well, small and medium groups can never become big, because there are only a few tens of millions of dollars to be shared among hundreds of groups, and the flagship art groups have got hundreds of millions of dollars. The situation has not changed since the handover. So for 15 years, how can there be enough for hundreds of groups using that few tens of $million? So how can young people join the industry? And there aren't enough venues. So the Kwai Ching Theatre, built by the regional council, is really regarded a new venue, because everyone is waiting for the WKCD. So everyone are doing their rehearsals in industrial buildings, alternative venues. And now they say it's not for creative industries. And I hope LegCo can pay attention to this. In many places, industrial factories can be used by the creative industry, so long as you're willing to amend the legislation. Mr. Lin Leung. I think those who are more veteran members of this group will know that Section 20 of the WKCD ordinance requires that consultative or advisory committees be set up. We asked Metropolis 20 in Bilbao, hoping that something like that can be included into our ordinance, and that a consultative forum is an open platform for different stakeholders, including government officials, members from the authority, management, and users, and artists, and related groups in Hong Kong, to exchange their views and to debate issues in an open forum, so that we know what WKCD built for the people should look like. Starting from 2008, there have only been 10 meetings. Last time, the last meeting was held on the 4th of June. And before that, the 20th of December 2010. And further back, the 23rd of December 2011. So only annual meetings. Of course, it was Esther Leung back then who was the Deputy Secretary responsible. Now she's been posted to the Treasury Bureau. And she told us that Metropolis 20 could not be directly copied, and the provision going to be drafted in that way. However, that platform is really bad. It was very different when CAP 601, the ordinance, was passed. The undertakings given by the administration have not been realized. I have I have strong views about this, and I like to put it on record. If the consultative platform is what it was expected to be, then the situation won't be like this. Perhaps this is not a question for Mr. Lynch, but for the PS, he's responsible for the policy. Will you review this consultative forum so that it can really be a forum for open debate, so we can discuss how this WKCD built for the people should be like. P.S. Yes, I agree that the platform should play a better role. In the past 2 years, it haven't met too frequently, and I hope that we can meet more often so that we can discuss issues close to the hearts of the community. We've recently appointed a new chairman, and who's told me that he would like to do more. And we've just met once, and I hope there can be more frequent meetings. I welcome the Secretary's remarks. I hope that I would regard it as a new thinking in terms of policy. However, it's not just about the quantity, but the quality as well. No, it is about the temporary use of WKCD, the English name of the C3 Center, Hekuk Zhongsam. I was thinking that it should be an open forum for brainstorming so that it can be chemistry for different stakeholders, so we can decide on the cultural content of WKCD. I hope Mr. Lynch and the PS can go back and revise the handset when we had a very heated debate when the bill was discussed by LegCo in 2007, like what we're doing now. Mr. Ho, I cannot agree with Mr. Alan Leung more. The consultative forum should meet on a regular basis so that when there is insufficient communication between the arts community or the cultural committee and community and the WKCDA, there can be an open discussion. And I think that the authority should enjoy full autonomy, and you have to include it so that, well, Mr. Chung Shangji, when he plays a saxophone there every weekend, he should have no fear of being arrested. So this is the software. Now the governance of the hardware. I'd like to put questions to two representatives from the Hong Kong Chinese Artists Association. Do you want to have a resident art group there? We have been talking about this for a long time. According to the submission of the association, art groups should be involved in the management, but it seems that there is no agreement on this yet. Perhaps being courteous, nobody mentioned this. But I think this is another example of where you have communication but cannot come to any agreement. The C3 Center will be the first facility to be commissioned there. So in the running of the venue, what is the greatest problem you face? How come the art groups cannot be involved in the management? And can the two representatives shed light on this issue? Ms. Lisa Wang, thank you for question. Well, I was not saying good things on behalf of the WKCDA. I just think that they have done something, and we should give them some positive encouragement. The C3 Center will be the first facility to be commissioned, so we have had more frequent communications with them. They've consulted our association from the appearance of the center to the mode of management or governance. Now, I've talked about the positioning and also our participation in the venue. I hope they would put arts first. I'm not saying that overseas operas are not good, but because we want local Cantonese opera to enjoy priority, we don't want to be a branch of a Beijing opera or second or third branch of a Guangdong opera. Now, because on the mainland, they have seen major changes. They have included orchestra and also make it more like drama. We have maintained what was handed down to us a few decades ago. We have our way of performing and also a script creation. Ms. Wang, beg your pardon. I'd like to know whether your association and other art groups can have a role to play in the management of the venue, or you just a subject of consultation. Well, they have not come to any decision yet. They are just consulting us. So I encourage members from our sector to give their views. I think the executive director of the C3 Center is important. It must be someone from our local sector. I don't want a layman to lead us and a director. Well, Ms. Claudia Mo, well, I hope you can tell us your outcome of discussion with the administration. Your time is up, Mr. Ho.
You can ask your question later, Ms. Claudia Mo. Well, I've written down exactly what Ms. Chan and Ms. Ho said is quoting Ms. Ada Wong, that there should be a free cultural park. Well, in your communication with them, there must be some. What do you think their stance is? And my next question is Mr. Lee Ting-chun. The music street is not something new, something first floated. People get the impression that it's more impromptu. What you have in mind is that everything will be in place for you, like time, place, sponsors. Well, what is their response to you? Ada first, Ms. Wong. 1 minute. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ms. Mo. Well, I find it bizarre that the planning of the WKCD is the C3 Center and the M+, they all have ahead. But when it comes to the park, there is no leading figure. I've asked this question in the advisory committee. That is why there is no public consultation on the planning of the WKCD. They said that it can be considered. But it seems that they are reluctant to conduct another public consultation. But there needs to be a public consultation for the park. As far as I understand, when it comes to the planning, well, I don't know what stage they've reached. At first, they wanted to have an architect, but they found that the fees for architects is about $200 million. But what I think is that as long as there is a huge lawn to give people free rein, they can play, they can sing, they can dance there, then there is problem. There is no need to pay a hefty architectural fees. I do think that there is a need to be a consultation because it's a huge park and it's something that is never seen in Hong Kong before. Mr. Lee. I was shocked by the figures, the money figures. In the past decade, we have a group of voluntary workers moving equipment, providing equipment. We have a jazz drum placed at the Avenue of Stars. It is used for 8 years. We received no sponsors or subsidies for the WKCD. All we know is what we've learned from the press. We're ignored. There is no communication channel. So it's very rare that we have this chance to have our say on what we would like to see. We want to have free space, complete freedom. Of course, there is a kind of monitoring system. We won't have someone who's tone deaf to be singing in the streets. And I can say that local artists, local musicians who perform in Hong Kong streets amounts to over 1,000. There are many non-mainstream musicians. It's a wonderful sector. Many of them turn out to be very successful musicians or producers. Ms. Ann Chang, I've heard from the deputations, and I think the most important thing is that the West Kowloon WKCD is a very important cultural district in Hong Kong. It will have a huge impact on Hong Kong, and abundant resources has been devoted to this project. What we hear, the impression we get, is that there may be insufficient communications with the artistic sector. People asked what software they are, what planning you have. Some people ask for a free area for street performers to perform. So there are diverse views. And I think you need to reach out to the artistic sector in Hong Kong. We can't give you our support yet because there are still many issues that we don't fully know about. There was a change of personalities, and we think that there are still things to be done. I believe that a lot of things are being planned. And you do need to step up your communications with the local artistic sector. Without their support, it will be difficult for us to support you in a funding application. Of course, the DAB would very much like to support the administration, but this time's different. Look at Christopher CHUNG. He has his eyes wide open looking at your plans and accounts. If Mr. Zhong said that he's not going to support, then I will follow suit. So this is not something for the minority. This is for all of Hong Kong people. So without the support of a local artistic sector, then we won't be able to support you. Perhaps we can have an afternoon tea meeting, regular exchange with you. You don't have to come to the LegCo. You can see that people are very unhappy. Just now, Mr. Wu Mr. Matthias Wu. I like to read his articles, and he's raised a number of valid points. Perhaps you haven't done a lot of things that you're supposed to. At least give us an explanation why. You have to convince them if you don't agree with them. Maybe just ask them to come to an afternoon tea to forge consensus. The civil service established approach may not be applicable to this issue. Don't I have 5 minutes? You only have a few more seconds. And I will listen to more views. Thank you very much for attending. Although there is a limited time, I know that you've given us your written submission. Thank you for coming. Well, we won't take the place of the advisory committee. This is the end of the first session. We have deputations in the second session, which starts at 11:40.